I'd like to call tonight's regular meeting of council to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of December 9th, 2019 be adopted with the addition of amended agenda item 6A, report from the Manager of Transportation and Economic Development regarding the 2020 Business Facade Improvement Program. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Skelton Morven. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Next, item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of November 25th, 2019 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Rittenhouse, second by Councillor Adey. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of November 25th, 2019 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3C, recommendation that the minutes of the public hearing meeting of November 25th, 2019 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Rittenhouse, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item 3D, recommendation of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of November 25th, 2019 be received. Moved by Councillor Skelton Morven, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first we have two petitions and delegations, but first we have a presentation of a Civic Appreciation Award for Fong Nguyen. This was meant to be at Canada Day, but Fong was working out in the seas on Canada Day, so we couldn't do the presentation then. So I'll just say a few words about Fong and why he's been nominated and for this award, and then we'll do some photos here together. So Fong was nominated because of his outstanding community service to Prince Rupert. You'll know him at every community event, taking videos and taking photos and taking selfies and live recording all the events that happen in Prince Rupert without ever even being asked to come and do that. So somehow he knows where every event is on all occasions and is there recording this for the community on their behalf, and has a Facebook page where you can access thousands of community photos from pretty much every event over the years, and does it all on his spare time, all on volunteer time, and edits and records and does it all himself. And I think it's time to recognize him for the work that he's been doing for the community. And I know our MLA has done the same and at the legislature down in Victoria. And so I just want to present this award tonight to Fong, and for all the great work you're doing for our community and for all the work I know you're going to continue doing for the community. So we'll maybe I'll do a round of applause for Fong. And then we'll come up here and do some photos. We'll come back over here because it's better lighting. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to say anything. Unless you got a 20-minute speech prepared. Oh, one more. As Fong would say, one more. One more. Like we like each other. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Still on the air. There you go. Yeah. It's still on the air. Yeah. Thank you, Bob. I hope your photographer was at the same caliber that you would take your own photos of, so they'll all be out of focus. Thank you again. Okay, next up we have not Inspector Blake Ward, but Sergeant Pascal Bollinger from the Prince Rupert RCMP detachment to give an update to council. And you can hit that mic right there on there as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to council and mayor. Just have a couple things to mention. First thing, I want to go over just a couple things on the quarterly report. With the Prince Rupert detachment being a 4-year limited posting for all our members, every year on average we have about 25% of us that turn over. This year is slightly higher due to gaps that we experienced 4 years ago, but we're still close to the track of 25%. In May of this year, we were able to resurrect our 2-man crime reduction unit. The unit focuses on building relationships with our vulnerable community members and working with other community partners to find solutions. However, due to one of the members transferring out, we currently only have 1 member working that, but early spring we should be back up to full strength with 2 members working in that unit. During last quarter, we have 1 full-time victim services and 1 half-time. Last quarter, our half-time victim services worker joined us in providing services to victims of crime. Referrals were up to 350 referrals to date this year compared to 150 last year, so doing quite a bit more referrals through victim services. Every year we consult with stakeholders in the community and try to come up with better ideas and better ways to help the community. Our annual performance initiatives this year involve road safety, domestic violence, healthy Aboriginal communities, crime reduction unit, and developing supervisors. So we work on those constantly to try to help everyone out and better the community. In January 2019, Stats Canada changed how we want to crime statistics reported to them. Previously, when the complaints were received, it was either reported to Stats Canada as founded, which is evidence that the offence occurred, unfounded, which is evidence that the offence didn't occur, or unsubstantiated, which is unable to confirm or deny the offence has actually occurred. Since January, scoring of unsubstantiated was removed, which only left founded and unfounded. So that resulted in an increase of number of founded offences, and it'll overall impact the crime severity index for us. So with that, it'll bring me to the next topic, the Maclean's reporting that recently came out. And there's no surprises with the stats. It's been in the same trend since the last few years. However, it is misleading because it doesn't capture the number of offences where the victim and the offender are known to one another compared to stranger-on-stranger offences. In Prince Rupert, we don't have many stranger-on-stranger offences. It's mainly known offenders to the people. Because the stats are based on 100,000 people, it looks like we have a lot of property crime, which is in fact quite low overall. We have a small population in Prince Rupert that we deal with, and if we have 1 or 2 stats that increase, that'll spike some of the statistics for us. In 2018, which that's when Maclean's was reported, it was a bit higher year for property crime, but that was due to 1 individual being linked to 9 separate break-and-enters, so that just spiked our stats there. But overall, property stats are low in Prince Rupert, or property crime stats. The last thing I wanted to mention was a new rollout that the RCMP is going to do starting January for Prince Rupert. It started in Surrey and it's gone to a couple of bigger places, but in January, Prince Rupert, we're hoping to start it. It's an online crime reporting system where people can report through an app or through the online website any files that police do not have to go to attend. So if somebody loses their wallet on the streets and there's no suspects or no witnesses to it, or somebody's bicycle stolen in their backyard and the value's under $5,000. No suspects, no witnesses, no video, but just the serial number. They just go onto the website, they type in all the information, and they get a police file number just to track it. But so any reports that police don't need to attend, they can be eventually done online, which will help our resources. That's all I had.
Great, thank you. Some questions from council.
Excuse me. First of all, I'm glad you're here. We've been talking about establishing this kind of an event for a number of months now, so I'm glad it's come to fruition, and I'm hopeful that we can establish it as a more regular thing, and we'll talk as we go on about how that might happen. I do want to ask you about two things. One is I want to address the Maclean's report just a little bit, but only in a very general way. And just as a background, as a 30-year teacher in the public school system, I've been dealing with the FSA assessments and the rankings that result from them. So I'm pretty familiar with the degree to which these things can turn into something that they're really not. But I think from the perspective of somebody, just a regular citizen on the street, what I would want to hear about a little bit is if I believe that report, should I feel safe walking around Prince Rupert, or is this a dangerous place to be? And I think, as a parent of a school-aged child, I think in those terms. So, what would you say about that? About the perception that might create that this is not a safe place to be?
Well, overall, the stranger-on-stranger violence in the city is quite low compared to other cities. It's mainly people that know each other, if it's familiar or just friends that know each other. That's where our violence seems to come from mainly. So the stranger-on-stranger is definitely low in this city.
Okay. My second question is related to, I mean, we all sort of, we see you guys out on the streets, and we see you answering calls, and we see the dealing with the crime aspects. I think there's a lot that goes on that we don't see. And I know a little bit about one example, and that was that I've been involved in some planning sessions that include the RCMP, but also social services and Northern Health organizations, to create a kind of a focus group that brings those people together to deal with individual cases, and it's called a Situations Tables Initiative. Now that's in the process of developing, so I know that's not come about yet. But I think what it illustrates is that there's a lot of work that the RCMP is doing that is kind of behind the scenes and working with other social service providers and the health authorities and what have you. Just wondering if you could tell us a little more about the kinds of things the force is doing that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, our crime reduction unit is building relationships with vulnerable community members and working with other partners in the community to find solutions. We continually have a strong relationship and work with MCFD. We have meetings with them regularly, NIFGIS, the Transition House. The members go to the schools, do school talks, impaired driving talks just last month with the high school students. We deal with the Friendship House every month. We just did a walk with them last week, and we did dodgeball with the youth at the Civic Center with the Friendship House and a bunch of youth from the high school. We have relationships, and we meet quarterly with Northern Health and the Firehouse, and yeah, so our relationships are strong with all those.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Winhowa, then Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation, and thanks for doing great work for our community and keeping our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Moreau.
Yeah, I'll echo that as well. Obviously, thank you very much for your service, and thanks for your time tonight. I'm wondering if you could just give a little more detail around what you had mentioned off the start there in the changes to the StatsCan data around removing the unsubstantiated. So now that's just founded and unfounded cases. Can you give a bit more information around what it would take to have something classified as unsubstantiated versus, or sorry, to have something considered unfounded versus founded?
So unfounded, like you said, unsubstantiated is out. Unfounded is something where we clearly know that it did not happen. If we can't prove that it didn't happen, or we don't have enough information to go forward, it's going to be considered founded. So it's just the ones that we can say for certain nothing actually occurred, that they will go into the unfounded now.
So essentially an allegation without evidence would still be considered founded.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And thanks very much for clarifying. So I guess just a larger question that I'm wondering if you can speak more broadly to some of the, I mean, Councillor Ady's done a pretty good job of describing the flaws in kind of the Maclean's data. I'm wondering from your perspective on the ground, what are some of the trends that we should be aware of that are unique to Prince Rupert that we need to plan for over the next 5 years?
I think Prince Rupert's growing in general, and some of the trends, I think we're struggling with some shelters in the area, and if we had more shelters, I think that would take some of the homeless off the streets, and it might take away some of that those issues.
Councillor Cunningham.
Following up on the more shelters and that, a lot of our problems, would you say, are more social issues than policing issues? And if so, would help from some of the provincial agencies help with that?
Yeah, definitely more so social issues than policing issues, and yeah, I mean, any help would definitely help us out, but yeah, it's definitely more social.
Are you finding there's a bigger homeless problem, say, this year than last year?
Yeah, there's definitely an increase in homeless people in Prince Rupert because of shelter issues, because we don't have the shelter capacities and whatnot, and people being forced out of their own homes and no longer having anywhere else to stay. There's some bigger places that were, I guess, closed last year, and some of those people don't have places to stay.
So, you know, I think it's a myth, because people seem to think as homelessness increases, crime increases, but I haven't seen much of an increase on street crime and that, because our homeless population is growing. Is that something you could address?
No, I haven't looked at the stats for street crime, but I don't believe our street crime's gone up because of it.
Okay, thanks a lot, and again, thanks for your service, and thanks for coming before us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Councillor Niche.
Well, statistics are all about what the author wants it to sound like. So, you know, having this discussion about one person having 9 files and how that can skew the statistics on property crime, as an example, it just makes such a huge difference in a small town, and how that statistic or percentage can drastically change just because of one person in a small town, compared to, you know, the big city where you've got thousands and thousands of property crimes. So I don't take a lot out of articles like Maclean's. I think that anybody that lives in this town or you know, visits our town would never feel that it's a dangerous place to be. Not that being said, I mean, we obviously have problems, and we do need to work on some of our social problems. And I'm really hoping that this other program that you guys are going to implement in January with the online property or registration of a crime, I guess you could say, I hope that frees up a lot of time for you guys to take care of bigger problems, rather than having to take members out of service so that you can file a report for a stolen bike or something simple. So I'm really hoping that that's going to free up a lot of your time and you guys be able to deal with more issues on the street versus sitting at a desk about a $100 bike that got stolen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Skelton Morgan.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Sergeant, for your service and for taking the time to the presentation. And I agree with Councillor Wade on the statistics and how the complexities of having a single individual having 9, 10, 15, even 80 files in some cases per year, where how that can kind of skew some of the statistics. And a lot of these are, and I agree with Councillor Cunningham, where they're social challenges and things that if we can really ramp up some of our efforts with social partners and that kind of things, then it doesn't become a policing problem. And with this new online service, anything that we can do to support through our channels, I'm sure we can figure something out and get the word out there for things that don't necessarily need a police response, but they can at least file a report. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
The comments from council? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
You have a great evening.
You too, thanks.
Okay, next up, we have a report from our Manager of Transportation and Economic Development regarding the 2020 Business Facade Improvement Program. Is there anyone wanting to speak to this? Or
I can speak to it on behalf of Mr. Venditelli. So basically, every year the city applies for a grant from Northern Development Initiative Trust to support the Business Facade Improvement Program that is managed out of his office. The program is used to encourage private sector investment in rehabilitating the commercial facades of their properties. And so in order to apply for next year's grant, we need a council resolution.
great, thank you. Moved by Councillor Moreau that the Mayor and Council support the application of the Northern Development Initiative Trust from the City of Prince Rupert for a grant of up to $20,000 for the 2020 Business Facade Improvement Program, seconded by Councillor Renhawa. Any discussion? Oh, this is a great program, actually. This is one of the hallmark programs that we apply to every year for businesses to be able to improve their storefronts. So definitely support this resolution.
So then, how business people can get that? Can you go over?
They make an application to our Economic Development Office, and then I believe a couple places get selected for the grants, and then they're able to improve their facades for that year.
I know Veronica's busy, but could she put something on the website, how to apply for this, as Councillor Rendawa just mentioned, so that people in the business community can't say they didn't know anything about it?
Yes.
Easy version of that is yes.
Yeah, it's usually online for sure. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have a report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2019 Financial Variance Report.
Thank you. So this is the October variance report. Operating and utility revenues and expenses continue to be on track with the overall budget. Trends are also in line with the previous year. The water utility operating expense is higher this year compared to budget, given the increased testing initiated since the boil water occurrence earlier this year. This was not anticipated during the budget initially. However, it's a variance that is of note. Capital projects are finalizing at this time, and costs will be reflected as final invoices are received. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilor Moreau?
Just a quick question related to that note around increased water testing. Is that something we're going to need to continue budgeting additional for until the new treatment facility is done?
Yes, we anticipate that we will continue that level of testing in accordance with Northern Health's requests. If they are the ones that say to go ahead and drop the testing levels because our samples that come back and the results are in a certain state or there's enough data for them to be able to draw any conclusions, then they would be the ones. They are the regulators.
Okay, no other questions? Next is a report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2020 Financial Plan, Capital Works and Purchases.
Thank you. Staff has prepared the recommended schedule of capital works and capital purchases for 2020. By council approving these works, it provides staff the time required to tender projects and obtain design requirements for the projects planned to be performed throughout the year. Many of the projects planned for 2020 are funded out of utility revenues, gas tax, grants, reserves, surplus, dividends, and debt. Some have been rolled over or are a continuation from fiscal 2019. Some notable projects planned to be undertaken in 2020 are as follows. The city will be continuing the second phase of the water project, which is the replacement of the Woodworth Lake Dam. It will be funded by a grant, with the rest funded by a dividend from legacy and debt. The loan is anticipated to be repaid through future legacy dividends. The city was awarded a grant for water treatment this year, and so our plans are to conduct value engineering prior to detailed designs of the new facility being conducted. The city is in the final phase of the liquid waste management plan, which requires us to begin major works for collection and treatment of the city's liquid waste. As such, spending in 2020 will include study, camera, and mapping of the pipe network connected to Outfall I in preparation for concentrating collection to enable treatment. 2020 will see the completion of the landfill leachate lagoon, which was necessitated from the existing cell expansion. These works will also support the new cell creation, which will begin excavation in 2020. The new cell creation will be funded through debt and repaid through annual solid waste fees. The recreation complex will see the replacement of the boilers, which were postponed to 2020. Condition and safety assessments on each of the city's bridges will be conducted according to an assessment schedule. The city has ordered the replacement garbage truck set to be delivered in 2020. Staff is continuing to develop a plan for curbside recycling using this multi-purpose vehicle. This truck, along with the new dozer at the landfill, will be funded through an equipment loan. And staff are recommending another increase to the annual paving budget for 2020, taking it from $500,000 in 2019 to $850,000 in 2020. Council is asked to approve the capital works and purchases schedule so that staff can begin to plan and organize for their acquisition and construction in the 2020 fiscal period.
Thank you. Questions from council? Yeah. Well, Barry first and then Nick. Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
With our paving increase, I know that the federal government's been talking a lot about infrastructure grants and that, and our road infrastructure is very poor right now. And I'm wondering if there is any grants going to be available that we can increase, double, triple, quadruple our paving contribution. And get,
If there are any grants available for roads, we would certainly have an appetite to go ahead and apply on them. So if anybody hears of anything that we haven't seen, and typically roads are not something that we can usually get grants for. We have not seen anything in the past. However, if there is a change, we would definitely apply for something.
And the good news is we're consistently going up with that budget, which is good. Councillor Edie.
I know some people react to the word debt. I know I reacted to, on my first house that I purchased, the amount of interest I paid versus the amount of principal in that first year, and I just about dropped my jaw. So I guess I want to feel that the debt that we're incurring is a natural part of the budgeting cycle, and that it's not unnecessarily straining the budget into a new form. Is this more or less within the bounds of manageable? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yes, actually. We have been fortunate enough that Watson Island is generating some revenue, and the model that we have created is such that much of the funds that is generated on that property is being allocated towards capital projects. So what I said when I mentioned that the water debt, for instance, would be funded through legacy dividends, it is contemplated that there won't be any extra increase to water fees to cover off the debt for the water dam. And additionally, we anticipate that in the future, the water treatment plant, we may need to get debt for as well. And it is still contemplated that the dividends from Legacy Inc. generated off of Watson Island would service that debt. These debts are about 25 years, 25 to 30 years. And right now, we can access funds through the Municipal Finance Authority, and the rates are generally quite low at the moment. Most interest rates at the moment are pretty low, so it actually isn't such a bad time to obtain debt. We would prefer not to have any debt, obviously, like you have alluded to, Councillor. People do not like the word debt. However, we have contemplated that the funds necessary to pay for the principal and interest won't be levied on water fees, or even on the any of the fees associated with the land, not with the landfill. Yes, the landfill fees will already cover the debt, so we're okay there. However, as far as the water fees, they are contemplated to not go up, and that Legacy dividends will service the debt for those two particular projects.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cunningham.
So, elaborating a little on Councillor Addy's, most people, when they hear debt, think taxes are going to go up, but neither fees for utilities or taxes will be affected because the debt will be paid by Legacy dividends.
So the different, there's 4 funds that the city has. We have 3 utility funds, being the solid waste, liquid waste, and the water fund, and they are all serviced through fee charges. General operations are funded through taxation, and we only go to taxation should we not have other sources of income in order to balance the budget down to 0. So the answer is yes. There won't be any fee increases associated with those other utilities to service whatever debts are needed for those particular utility major projects. And going forward, we hope that there won't be any additional taxes for any debt that is necessary for large major projects that are of a general operation nature.
Councillor Niche, then Councillor Morrow.
I just wanted to thank staff on their hard work of actually starting to generate revenue so that we are able to, I guess, pay some of these debts rather than raising taxes. So good job.
Councillor Morrow.
That's very similar to what I was going to say. But I'll just add not having to raise fees either as well, which is also great. I just want to say thanks so much for your hard work. I know the capital budget is one of the more challenging and complex things to put together, especially when I would still argue we are still in lean times, obviously having to prioritize health and safety above all the nice to haves. But at least I've found in the 5 or 6 budget cycles that we've done, things are getting easier as more revenue comes in from Watson, so that's always nice. But I do want to single out 2 investments that I think we wouldn't have been in a position to do a few years ago that are actually going to save us money over the long term, which is replacing the rec center boilers, which were responsible for some of the highest corporate emissions that we actually have, and so that'll reduce our energy consumption and obviously the costs there. But then curbside recycling is obviously a huge demand that we're hearing, and not only for the environmental benefits of reducing our waste, but also to save us money over the long term and not having to continue to build landfill cells to take all of this waste. So I'm really happy with this capital budget, and again, thank you very much for your hard work on this file.
Other comments? Councillor Addy.
I would just follow up by saying I understand that debt is part of the real world. I would not have had my first house without it. So I want to echo what a good job I think that you're able to do with this stuff. It's certainly a complex process, and I think we're moving in a good direction.
Any other comments? Okay, so the recommendations that council approve by resolution, the proposed schedules of capital works and capital purchases so that city staff can begin to plan and organize for their acquisition and construction in the 2020 fiscal period. Moved by Councillor Morrow, seconded by Councillor Scout Morgan. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have another report from our Chief Financial Officer regarding the cemetery fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3450.
I'm starting to feel like I'm hogging the mic. But I promise the last time you'll cheer for me. So the current cemetery fees and charges bylaw will expire at the end of 2019. The proposed bylaw is intended to be in effect for the year 2020 and includes a couple of changes. The fees have been increased by 3% to cover the increased cost associated with performing all services. And those services performed for non-residents are noted as being subject to a 30% surcharge. The surcharge is considered appropriate given non-resident use limits the existing space available for residents. And it should be pointed out that there was non-resident charges beforehand. So all we've done is we've just simplified the table. Council is asked to give the bylaw 3 readings this evening.
Okay, so the recommendations that council introduce and give first, second, and third readings to the cemetery fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3450, 2019. Moved by Councillor 80, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have a report from our corporate administrator regarding the finance administrative fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3451, 2019, and RCMP administrative fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3452, 2019.
Thank you. With respect to the first bylaw amendment, with respect to the finance administration fees, those that bylaw's been, we're looking to update it, given that it's been unchanged for the last 15 years, and we'll look to update, clarify those fees and charges. So that's the first one. And then with respect to the RCMP administration fees, that's also looking to update and then remove obsolete fees to more align with the cost of providing that service.
Okay, so the recommendation that council give first, second, and third readings to the finance administrative fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3451, 2019, and that council give first, second, and third readings to the RCMP administrative fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3452, 2019. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, so we'll do some reports, questions, and inquiries from member of council. Do you want to go first? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say some words about this weekend.
Yeah, so you go ahead and do it.
For hometown hockey. Well, I am a hockey parent, and I did participate in many ways by being there to watch, and also through donating time to make things happen. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to put a shout out to a lot of different people. One to Rosa Miller, who was a big part of getting it here, along with David, who is our recreation director, and the staff that work with them to make that happen. And I want to put a big shout out to all the minor hockey parents who were involved in doing all sorts of things, whether it was flipping burgers on the barbecue or selling 50-50 tickets or doing whatever they had to do. All the city staff that helped out and did it with a smile on their face, like an example would be Hans Hagen driving the Zamboni down McBride and participating in the Winterfest parade, which kind of got tied into this whole hometown hockey, and I just think that our town did a spectacular job of showcasing who we are. We've heard comments that this is one of the best places that the staff of hometown hockey, how they were greeted, how they were treated, and I think they all had a great time here. And another thing, it just with the hometown hockey, with the Winterfest, with the Rampage game, it was a crazy weekend. I barely spent any time at home, and I had a great time all weekend. And I just think everybody did such a great job, and I just want to thank everybody. And I hope that something like this can spur more people to help out and volunteer their time when it comes to community events, because we seem to have, people get tired of doing it, and we need new people to step up to take over on things such as this. And I just think that it was a spectacular weekend, and it really showcased our town to our country, and that was amazing.
Well said. Other comments or questions from council? Councillor 80.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. I just, first of all, want to echo what Councillor Nisha said. It was a fabulous weekend. It was a weekend where I think a lot of people in Prince Rupert felt pretty good about being in Prince Rupert, and that's never a bad thing. I do want to acknowledge a couple of events that I attended recently. One was it wasn't an opening because they've actually been open for a few months, but it was a kind of an open house / introduction to the community for the Cradles to Moccasins Family Center down on Fraser Street. And what it is it's a place where parents can take their children between from birth till 6 years old, and it's not a drop-off center. You're going to go there. You're going to spend time with your child there in a fun place, but also a place where they bring services and support and information to the parents in regard to some of the challenges that young parents face. So child development information and support, connecting families that need it with service providers, and a number of other issues. And I just found it to be a really sort of warm and welcoming place, and I think it's some of the quiet work that people do that help make a difference in a community. So I want to acknowledge those people there. Second, last Friday was the 30th anniversary of the Montreal Massacre, where 14 women were killed at the École Polytechnique. And in town here, there was a memorial service event held, which I attended. And they did a beautiful job of it. I want to thank the organizers for doing that. And just as a way of putting it in context, these kinds of things are important for a lot of really obvious reasons, but not least of which is that over time they can actually make a difference. So to illustrate that, I would refer to a story on the CBC on Friday that said that the municipality in Montreal where this event took place, after 30 years, had finally changed the memorial sign from a sign that memorialized a tragic event to a sign that memorialized a tragic attack on women. They actually identified it for what it was, and it took 30 years for that to happen. So I think these things are really important. They did a beautiful job. It was a very moving ceremony. And the last thing is a reminder to anybody who's interested that the Jingle Bell Rock event happens next Saturday. It's a fundraiser for the Salvation Army, and the music will be really good.
Thank you. Other reports? Councillor Naish.
Just one thing I forgot to say. I would like to make a recommendation if we could maybe just as a memory so that everyone gets to see it that was involved. I would like to see that jersey that was given to the city by Hometown Hockey, I would like to see it in the recreation facility where it belongs, not in a hallway or in an office in City Hall.
Well, it's funny you say that because I'm pretty certain that that's exactly what the decision today was made with the staff, so it will certainly be down at the recreation complex. Other comments or reports from council? So I will end the night off with just saying that this Thursday, the doors open at 6:30. We're having the unveiling of the Prince Rupert 2030 vision. There will be some statements made that evening from Larry Beasley, who was hired to help facilitate the process and the workshops that happened throughout the year with over 40 organizations. It's going to be a quite exciting night about the next decade of what things are going to look like in Prince Rupert. It will cover topics on social infrastructure, from housing to economic development, including issues around the downtown and waterfront and things like that. And there will also be some pretty exciting announcements that evening as well, which I think some of the community will want to hear firsthand at the event. City West will be live streaming the event as well as recording it. So there will be a link probably put up on social media or through the website where you can access that if you're not able to attend in person. So looking forward to that event. The event starts at 7, but 6:30 the doors open, and we're looking forward to a hallmark evening that will really kickstart the next stage in Prince Rupert. Councillor Cunningham.
I want to echo what you just said. I think it's very important the people of Prince Rupert get out to this event. It's something that's about our future. It's something that people in Prince Rupert can participate and be part of the city's future. Like, the city's gone through a real downtrend for quite a while, and this to me is something to get excited about and something that we should really get behind and support. And I'd like to see the people that just walk up and down the streets, the people that come to this, so they can see the changes that can be made if people want to participate in it. Because it's got to be an effort from the whole city, not just city council, developers and that, but the normal person that walks around the city that complains about empty stores and things like this. I'd like to see them out. So if they've got an opinion, I'd like to hear it that night, because a lot of work has gone into this, and I really think it's important people get out and support it, or at least if they've got a criticism about, let's hear about it.
Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor 80, seconded by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Means adjourned.